guys, welcome to the Next Generation podcast, a space run by young people for young people, where we talk about stuff that actually matters to us, whether it's things we deal with every day or big issues shaping our world. Just a quick heads up, some of the things we will talk about today might be a bit sensitive or triggering. If anything makes you feel upset or worried, please don't keep it to yourself. Talk to a trusted adult or check out the services we'll mention at the end of the episode. Thank you so much for being here, and let's get started.
This is Next Generation Podcast, a Sporting Aid project produced by Ragdoll Media, made possible with the help of Safer Streets Bedfordshire, Bedfordshire Community Foundation, Bedford Borough Council, Bedfordshire Police, 4YP UK and Nexus Mentoring.
Hello, welcome to Next Generation Podcast, and today I am your host. My name is Rue. We are joined here by Gwen.
Hi.
Martina.
Hi.
And Shirley.
Hello.
On this section of the podcast, we'll be talking about intersectionality and power dynamics. So, Shirley, what to you is intersectionality?
Intersectionality is the concept that helps us to understand how different aspects of our identities, like race, gender, sexuality, class, and more, combine to create unique experiences of privilege and oppression.
Thank you for that, Shirley.
You're welcome.
Do you or anyone else in the room personally have experiences with dealing with your intersection of your statuses and how that affects you either negatively or positively?
My school, it has a lot of mainly boys do it. They always make fun of gay people.
And would you yourself identify within the LGBTQ community, and is that how that affects you?
I am bisexual, so I get a lot of, oh, are you 50% straight then? And so I sort of just go along with it to shut them up quicker.
Is this unfair assumptions about stereotypes, would you say?
Yeah, because I'm not really 50% straight, but I'm also not really 50% gay. I'm just both.
Is there anyone in the room, is there anyone who maybe experiences a different kind of thing? Maybe someone has seen someone be mean to someone because of their race?
There's this girl, and she seems like such a nice person, but when you start to get to know her, she's like, are you the person that I first started being friends with? She said, and I heard this directly, I was standing right next to where she said it, she didn't like black people. Let's just say the entire year group of school doesn't like her anymore.
I think that is a relatively fair response from the rest of the school. Do you understand, and this is to all of you, do all of you understand how intersectionality and these experiences that you've had with intersectionality, do you understand how all of this can impact violence against women, girls, or anyone who may be AFAB?
Yes.
Yeah.
Gwen, why would you say that it is helpful to understand that intersectionality can affect people in different ways?
Because it can affect people in many ways, especially mentally. You know the saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words would never hurt me. The gist of that statement is sort of physical abuse is more bad, but in general, I'd say once your mental health is broken in some way, you can never really truly fix it. And being discriminated against in any sort of way, it puts that onto your mental health. It makes you believe those things that people are saying about you.
And Martina, would you say that mental health is considered less important than someone's physical health, whether that would be illness or injury?
I think it can be more important because your mental health can affect your physical health. If you physically unhealthy, just say you've broken something or you've got, say, arthritis or something. Is that physical? That is, isn't it?
Arthritis is physical.
That might not affect your mental health, but it might not. But it just say you've got mental health issues, you've got depression, something like that. You might stop exercising. That might cause arthritis. So they kind of backlash onto each other.
Yes, but do you think that the greater population understands this correlation exists?
I think they just think it's health, and some people think that if you've got depression, they blame everything on it. That you get one thing, that's blamed on everything.
Shirley, do you think there are any solutions that can help people who are struggling with the effects of intersectional discrimination?
I feel like if you let people talk about their feelings, it might help, because mental health can rely on not getting your actual feelings out. So if you talk to people, it might improve their mental health.
Do you think, and this is to go off of your original answer, do you think that people in the modern age actually talk to people enough to understand each other's problems, whether that's with discrimination or just generally having a bad day?
I don't think they do enough, because nowadays we have like phones like everywhere we go, and a lot of people think like texting people is like talking to people about their feelings. Like if you were talking to someone about their feelings and they sent a skull emoji, I feel like people might feel a bit more
Invalidated?
a bit more sad than they felt before.
This one is on for the table, all of you. Have any of you experienced any kind discrimination or abuse, or seen it? Specifically domestic abuse within a home, whether that's yours, a friend's, or a family member's?
I haven't seen domestic abuse, but I've seen like verbal abuse. So there's this one girl in my class. She has a lot of issues she's got a lot of learning disabilities, and the boys in my class are constantly bullying her. Yeah. Thankfully, there's this one girl, she's really nice. She's got a brother who's highly autistic, like he's in a wheelchair, non-verbal and stuff like that. She's constantly defending her. The boys are constantly saying stuff like, that's going to get her in trouble, like go up and wipe our names off the board, stop us from getting behaviour points, things like that. They ask her questions that provoke her into getting herself in trouble.
Provoking certain sensitivities that she may have.
Yeah, like saying she's ugly and things like that, because it makes her like, it will make her shout out like, no, I'm not, and start like trying to fight him.
I see.
They'll get her in trouble.
In this scenario, domestic abuse happens within a home or within a relationship. Shirley, do you think that domestic abuse is more common if someone doesn't understand intersectionality?
I feel like that could be a possibility. I feel like there's a lot of cases in like America, and women don't understand that they're being domestically abused, because over there it's very normal for like the older generation to teach the younger generations that the men are the providers and the women stay home. And I've seen a lot of like stories from America about that. It always ends in either mental or physical abuse.
So would you say that domestic abuse is an issue for not just the age above us, but also our current generation, Generation Z?
I feel like it is a very big issue, even for our generation, because if you go to school, there's so many fights and there's so many like threats to fight people, or like you'll just get jumped in the hallway or something.
I have never really seen violence in a relationship before, but I do think it is a massive part of it.
How do you think intersectionality can inform us in making solutions for violence against women and girls within the future?
Understanding intersectionality can help us to inform policymakers and help us to create more inclusive and effective interventions.
Are there any solutions that use intersectionality that you can think of?
Mainly like allyship. I think support from, like, for example, males, so that they could understand and support and like remove the barriers between it all.
Shirley, do you think many males in your life are allies of women's rights?
I think it's mainly a bit older than us, maybe like our parents' ages that are more like women's rights. I feel like the older generations are really like stuck in their ways of like the men make money, the women stay at home, and then the younger generation, like our generation, are then just like so disrespectful. They like say like sexist things all the time.
Martina, back to you. On the topic of allyship and the disconnect between males and females of our generation, would you say that there is a rivalry between males and females within our generation, within our year groups, within schools and other social places?
Definitely, because I know we're not in America, but in America
Yes.
I'm constantly seeing stuff like mainly women are voting not for Trump because they think taking our rights, but the men think like, oh no, he's doing everything right, blah blah blah. And even in our classes, year groups, everyone's always bickering with each other about stupid things.
Is there anyone in this room who knows what an incel is, perchance?
Nah.
Nope.
Okay, so incel, also standing for involuntary celibate, Incels are a common name on the internet for men, males, young boys or older boys who can't seem to find a girlfriend, and that is usually because either some people say it's their looks, usually it's because of their personality and how they were taught to treat women. They use females a lot. It's like, I think, a way of disrespecting, as they call them by scientific terms, almost like they are objects. And that is the main problem here. We have created a place where misogynists and other ists and phobes and other intolerant people can prosper and find their own cultures where they can then, I don't want to say indoctrinate, but I'm going to say indoctrinate other young boys and other young, maybe white people or able-bodied people to do those sort of things. And that can foster many communities. There are many communities of intolerant people who may also decide to go after people of minority status because they think that they're better than them, and maybe they'll exercise those privileges on them. Maybe someone older will go and prey on a younger person in places and chats that offer things like maps, minor attracted persons, or also known as pedophiles. Or maybe there's places like white power subreddits or blogs where they will go and harass a black creator's page for talking about the lack of inclusivity in a certain makeup brand that they seem to really like the formula of. Or maybe there will be able-bodied people who purposely choose to build steps in their establishment because the communities on their Facebook pages say that people in wheelchairs don't deserve the luxuries that other people do. And this is a core problem within intersectionality, because if we don't touch on the fact that there will always be a barrier if we allow communities to foster, like the communities in schools where like the boys get separated from the girls for things like sex ed. And I understand why they would do that. Boys are kind of horrible when it comes to sex ed. We all know it. When you separate boys and girls for things like PE, where I wouldn't say it's entirely necessary, unless if it's the changing aspect or something like that. Or we separate boys and girls just in general, or people sometimes self-segregate in friend groups. It's a common occurrence in schools and other social spaces where black people will stay in their own friend units and white people choose to stay in their own friend units, and other people of other races or other ableness or other genders or sexualities choose to stay away from each other because they believe that the others are going to hate each other. And I think what Shirley said when we were talking about talking and social media, it was all quite important to this because we all isolate ourselves, and I don't think that fosters anything good for us in the future.
These are very good points, Rue. How do you think that online influencers play a part in this?
Online influencers, considering that if we're talking about the current growth of violence against women, we're going to be talking about our current generation. Online, keyword. The internet was created quite a while back. It's evolved since then. And now that we have multiple spaces, young people will mainly know how to use the internet more than adults because they grew up on it, they were educated on it. Children have iPads in primary schools now. And you know what you can do on an iPad? Watch Andrew Tate, watch Elon Musk. Sometimes they don't even block sites that involve pornography. Pornography is important to this conversation, very important. You guys don't get it yet. And these influencers, whether they are directly saying or indirectly saying would be an example, Andrew Tate. He's like, all women are bad and I keep a machete under my bed. That is all very bad. He is saying that up front. He is trying to get a reaction, yet there are boys who will believe him. And in the UK specifically, he targets quite a big religious demographic we have, specifically young Muslim boys. There are many of them out there. There are many young Muslim immigrant boys out there who see this man living out his life as someone who they view as a devout Muslim, as an immigrant, as someone who has many cars and many other things that most boys are relatively considered interested in, and stereotypically. So they will latch onto that as a person. And Andrew Tate was latched onto very heavily. Now, for indirect influences, I'm going to touch on pornography. Pornography plays a big role in this. According to statistics that I have read in the past, it is around 60 to 80% of boys aged under 9 years old who have watched pornography that involves bondage, CNC, which stands for consensual, non-consensual, or just direct rape. all of these things play a really bad look into our society, not just in the fact that, like, I don't know, the men look stronger and the boys are like, I want to be strong like that, but I don't know how. It's not like that. No, this isn't insecurity we're talking about. We're talking about almost over security in a way. They see that men are able to take advantage of women so easily. There are so many videos of women who pretend to be asleep whilst men do things to them, and it with their big, strong, veiny hands or whatever. That is so important to keep in mind. These women, whether they're acting or not, they're asleep. They are said to be unconscious, unknown to what's going on. That puts them in a place of vulnerability. That puts men in a place of power. These young boys who are under the age of 9, as we've already pre-specified, will have this disposition to view that men have power over women. They are more likely to commit rape. They are more likely to abuse women. They are more likely to hurt women, whether that's out of necessity, passion, or just direct cruelty. And on that note, domestic violence plays into this. Approximately 2.3 million of adults aged between 16 and 74 experienced domestic abuse in 2023. And approximately 1.6 of these were women and 800,000 were men. This is a very unfair statistic. And particularly worryingly, the stat lacks figures for young people, our generation. Domestic abuse has not been figured within ages 13 to 16 or even under. Now, Gwen, have you observed or experienced any domestic abuse? What was happening at the time and what did you do about it? If not, that's totally fine.
I haven't experienced any domestic abuse. I haven't witnessed any domestic abuse. I think I've been quite lucky with that. I haven't really experienced any of it.
That is amazing. Now, Martina, same question. Have you?
No, I haven't either.
Shirley?
No, me neither.
I personally have, and it's quite a difficult situation. Fight, flight, or freeze is definitely something that comes into it. And lots of the time, domestic abuse doesn't bring up in courts or even around police. And there are many people who are being abused, either that's by parents or partners, but this is about relationships. And relationships is the big one, as intimate relations, specifically sexual relations, give people a lot of power over someone, especially if that person might be giving instead of taking, or if that person is paying for the date, or if that person has a financial or emotional hold on you. Gwen, back to you. Do you feel that domestic abuse is an issue amongst people under 16, so our age bracket?
Yeah, I think it's not really spoken about as much, mainly for the fact that I think people think that, oh, it's just kids, they're using their imagination, they think it's happening when it's not, but in reality it is. And so I think a lot of it goes unnoticed by a lot of people because, well, they're kids. It's not really something that's going to happen to them.
Along this line, domestic abuse and power have quite a chain link to them. What is your understanding of power and control over someone?
A definition of power is the ability to influence or direct behaviour of others or the course of events. In relationships, you can see one person having more power over the other, like by making them check your phone and devices, or not allowing you to go see certain people and things like that. Control is almost the same thing. It's the act of dominating or managing someone else's actions or feelings.
A follow-up from that question. Do you think having power or control over someone, especially if they're in the same age demographic, race demographic, able demographic, and the only thing that's different between you two is gender, is fair in any context?
No, not at all. Because, just say in a relationship, you should have equal control and power over each other.
And Shirley, considering that we have already evaluated that having too much power or too much control over someone is unhealthy, what is a healthy relationship and what does it look like?
So I think that a healthy relationship is a consensual, working, healthy relationship between two people who are both consenting adults. Well, that's just like a dating relationship, but basically just like not having too much control over each other is healthy, and not like abuse or anything like that.
What is an unhealthy relationship?
An unhealthy relationship can be anything to verbally, physically or emotionally abusing, can be anything to like being shouting constantly, fighting. If they raise their hand to do something, they flinch. That is a definite red flag right there. You can be someone who's like really manipulative of another person.
Now, Gwen, what do you think would be a solution for someone who is in an unhealthy relationship, but in a situation where they can't talk about it, where that power dynamic has been drawn and they aren't able to speak about it for whatever circumstance?
They can go to charities such as Refuge and the Women's Aid, but they can also go to National Domestic Abuse Helpline, which is 0808 2000 24/7 for help to get out of a domestic abuse situation.
Shirley, do you think that people who are being isolated romantically in this scenario, in a relationship where they don't have access to friends or family anymore, do you think that they will be able to access those things due to the fact that their partner has such a high surveillance on them?
I do not think that they will be able to access many things, especially if their partner is aggressive or controlling. And they like check their phone all the time, or like delete like all their family's contacts and that. So I don't think they'll have many chances to escape to the outside world. If they have internet, they can use the organisation.
Okay, this is a question directed at... So over the time that we've been researching this podcast, we have heard many stories from women and girls and other people alike. How do you feel when you hear stories about violence against women and girls?
I think it's sad that it's continuously going towards this way, and I don't really think it's getting any better, which makes it even worse.
I agree with Gwen's points, saying that it's not been getting any better, and I don't think it's gonna get any better anytime soon, because I don't think the world is gonna take a while to realise, damn, this is serious, this is bad.
I agree. Also, when I hear Reddit stories about this, it makes me very angry, and I start throwing my phone on the floor and screaming into a pillow.
Back to Gwen. What role do you think young people play in preventing violence against women and girls?
I think, like I said before, allyship, like educating males on like domestic abuse and the violence that goes against women and girls.
Martina?
I think that young people, we're the next generation, we're going to be the next adults, so we need to realise that it's bad and you shouldn't do it, no matter if you're male or female, that our generation will be the generation that stops this.
Shirley?
I agree with Martina and Gwen. I also think that our generation should start focusing and realising that that is wrong, because when we're older, our kids are going to be the new generation, and maybe over a couple of years, if we all get our ideas together, we can stop this.
And before we cut off to Gracie, I'm going to leave you with a few final questions. What have you done and what can you do to help your community stop these appalling and disgusting acts against your fellow girls and women in your neighbourhoods, family units, countries, friend groups, and everything in between? And since we haven't been talking just about this, we will cut to our second host, Gracie.
With me today I have Gwen, Martina and Shirley, and I'm your host, Gracie. Gwen, what does violence against women and girls mean to you?
I think it could mean a lot of things. I think it could be physical, it could be verbal, it could be sexual, it could be psychological, it could be anything that like harms them in any way.
I think similar to Gwen, like it can be any way that harms them emotionally, physically, mentally. It doesn't have to physically leave a scar on their body. It can leave scars like in their head.
Do you have anything else you want to add to that, Shirley?
It is quite similar, but I think it can be mentally draining and quite like depressing to have something like that happen to you.
Thinking back to our research, what do you guys think on victim blaming and stereotypes within that?
I think that a lot of girls, if they like tell people that they have been raped or sexually assaulted, they are blamed for like wearing overly revealing clothes, even though that's not a thing because rape was happening before revealing clothes even existed. So it's not really an excuse.
What are your guys' opinion on consent with this whole topic?
I think consent is really important because without it, someone could be really uncomfortable and you may not know.
What is consent, Martina?
Consent is you agreeing to have someone do something to you. It can be something as simple to holding your hands or like giving you a hug or something like that. But the word yes or yeah or something equivalent to that has to come out your mouth. It can't be a sure. It has to be a yes for it to be consensual.
Have any of you ever witnessed or experienced situations that you feel were violent or harmful towards women and girls?
The school uniforms in most schools are always, for girls, very bad because mainly the PE kits. Our school skirts are tiny. Like, I'll be sitting down or something and it's like, you can barely see it. These school uniforms should just be scrapped or, like, made longer.
They tell you that your skirt has to be, like, near your knees, but no one notices it, except for, like, most of the male teachers. And then the ones noticing that it's just above your knee. I think it's weird that the male teachers are allowed to go inside the girls' changing rooms. Even if they ask, they have to like make sure everyone's decent, but I still don't think they should be in there.
And our school supplier, who supplies our skirts, I have the longest skirt and it is 20 centimetres. I'm not that tall and it still goes above my knee. If they want us to wear longer skirts, they should make longer skirts.
Either like with PE kits especially, it's like the girls' shirts as well because they're cut in V-necks to the point where it's so almost revealing. Where it's so bad.
The smaller size for me, I couldn't get out of after PE because it was too small to take off. And yet the bigger size, the neckline is so long, I even in summer I have to wear a jumper on top because otherwise it's just too revealing. And then with like the skirts and skirts, they have to be knee length and then you get in trouble if they're not. And then the skirts, there's such a big difference because they have shorts on underneath. Yet I don't know a single girl in my school who doesn't wear tights or shorts underneath their school skirts because they blow up. We used to be allowed pencil skirts, but they thought it was too sexualising, so now you have to wear pleated knee-length skirts. I do roll my skirt up because it looks ridiculous, and I also wear tights underneath it, and that's fine. But then if you were to have the same length as my skirt, which is literally like a couple inches off my knee, and have no tights, it's unacceptable. So it's like, oh, if you have tights on, if we can physically see there's something underneath your skirt, then you can wear it. And it's ridiculous.
We've got monitors in our school, so we always have to stand on the chairs to turn them on. My friend, she stood on the chair to turn on the monitor, and a couple of the boys looked up her skirt, and it wasn't even that short, and she said she felt so uncomfortable about that. I think the boys, definitely, mainly certain groups of boys, should be educated on do not look up a girl's skirt because we are not afraid to punch you.
I feel like if they are to look up your skirt, like, you can punch them. Like, you shouldn't, if they don't get in trouble for it. Yeah, it's called upskirting. It's like, if they don't get in trouble for upskirting you, then you shouldn't get in trouble for punching them because it's offensive as well because... Yeah, it's a criminal offence. As is punching someone, but it's defence, If someone looks up your skirt, you should be allowed to punch them because it's like, it's fair, Like, it's not fair that they looked up your skirt, but it's fair if they get punished for it in a bigger way than, oh, you have detention net for lunch. Like, sorry, most boys don't care if they miss their lunch. They play football or go on their phones the whole time. Most boys who get detention generally are with their friends. And so it's like, most over-sexualisation happens in school because it's given more notice about it, if you get what I mean, because schools have stuff about, oh yeah, consent and stuff, yet people will take the mick out of it because they're like, oh, this is being talked about, it's not serious, even though it is. I'm assuming most people have seen the T video. There's also a bicycle video which is along the same lines, yet you wear a helmet for protection. And a lot in these videos, it kind of explains consent. For the T one, it's someone might want tea now, but they won't want it later. Some might not want tea in general, and then you shouldn't force people to drink tea. You shouldn't force people to do things they don't want. And then the bike rider one is along the same lines. You have helmets for protection. You can get on the bike, but you don't have to stay for the whole bike ride. You can get off whenever you want. And they will be linked in the description if you want to go check them out. And I feel like the T one, it catches more of the younger people because it's funny and it's more like upbeat with it. It's like unconscious people don't want tea. That is mentioned, I think, 3 times. And it's always like unconscious people don't want tea. And it's you will recognise it. People will say the tea consent thing, you'll be like, oh, I've seen that. And then the bicycle one, it's less known, I think, because it's quite slow paced, but it's still important to know. And also, saying yes once doesn't mean saying yes forever. You can say yes to tea or yes to a bike ride a week ago, but it doesn't mean you want it right now.
This is Next Generation Podcast, a Sporting Aid project produced by Ragdoll Media, made possible with the help of Safer Streets Bedfordshire, Bedfordshire Community Foundation, Bedford Borough Council, Bedfordshire Police, 4YP UK and Nexus Mentoring.